What's going on, everybody? Usually don't make these short type of videos, but we had some very interesting news happen last night. Phil Galfond recently on the podcast, and I don't remember him talking about this on the podcast. He might have dropped some very subtle hints that we didn't pick up on, but Phil Galfond wrote an article and posted it on his website, runitonce.com. The link will be in the description below, where Phil Galfond talks about what a poker site should be, and at the end of it, he makes an announcement for Run It Once Poker coming in the first quarter of 2017. Yes, that's right, a Run It Once Poker site. Now, I talked with Phil a little bit about coming back on the podcast, and he said in a couple weeks, when he can get into more details, we should be seeing him back on the podcast, and we can ask him all the questions I'm sure that we all have on our minds. But I know a lot of people out there are wondering right now what's going to happen, what it's going to be, what do we know, how's it going to work, how are players going to play on there, what's the rake? I mean, everyone's got a million questions over on 2plus2, on Twitter, over on Reddit Poker. So let's kind of talk about a couple things, and let's take a look at what we know. So basically, it seems like what we know so far is that it will not be serving United States players. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work in terms of Phil Galfond being a United States citizen. Is he going to have to leave the country, or we don't exactly know how that's going to work. I think that's going to be something that I'm very interested in seeing exactly what the process is for him to be able to operate a poker site, but be actively in the United States. I think some other posts that we've seen on 2plus2. I saw Joe Tall post something about he suspects that the site might be a part of an existing network. The software might be existing software rebranded, and or it might be a skin of an existing poker site like an iPoker. And I just find that pretty hard to think that is exactly what would take place, especially if you read over what Phil said in his article. I don't think he'd have any, he wouldn't be able to do the things that he's saying if he's an iPoker skin. We know iPoker has its own issues. I mean, it's got its own issues, okay? So, and if I could see it buying some old software, potentially rebranding it. But I don't know. I don't see that from Phil. I just don't. It seems like with Phil, from talking with him and from everything we've seen over the years, Phil values something that's extremely high quality. And I just feel like if he's going to go all in on something like this, especially if it means him having to relocate out of the United States full time, I feel like this is something that's going to be his. It's going to be original. It's going to be unique. It'll be a part of its own network. It'll be its own software. So obviously we'll find out more information as that goes along, but I really do just find that hard to believe that it would be a part of an 888 poker or iPoker or anything like that. So another thing I've seen a lot of people say is, oh, it's going to be so regular infested. There's no recreational players for advertising, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can definitely see that being true. I can see there being a lot of regulars on the site. But at the same time, I also see it developing to the point where there are a lot of recreational players who are playing on the site. Because one, recreational players hopefully will be able to actually win more at the lower stakes and be able to build up. I mean, I also think that people have been, for a number of different reasons in terms of poker stars over the years, whether it's seeding scripts or whether it's, all the things that have happened with the rake and with the spin and goes and with the, black. There's so many things I feel like that people are just scared away from playing online poker. They just turned off to online poker. They've tried PokerStars a couple times in the past, and they just don't want to come back. I feel like them seeing a name like a Phil Galfond and whoever else is associated with the site is going to pique these new players' interest. Or not even new players, but pique these players who maybe have given up on online poker, who went back to just playing live. It's going to pique their interest to give it another shot, see what it's all about. And then it's on Phil and his team to deliver a quality product that keeps these players coming back, that keeps them enjoying themselves on the software. And I'm personally very hopeful about the PLO ecosystem, because I think we've seen that it's possible to run micro stakes and lower stakes games and not rake the absolute shit out of them to the point where not many players can actually win, get better, build up their role, and move up stakes. We've seen that model be implemented by Microgaming Network, by the Unibet Network, and it's something I've always wondered, especially at PLO, why would the rake be the same at No Limit as it is at PLO? It just doesn't make sense. Phil, obviously being a longtime Pot Limit Omaha player, the great game of Pot Limit Omaha, I feel like he is the type of person who understands this. He's the type of person who, just think about this. The people that are making the ultimate decisions at PokerStars, there's a really great chance they've played absolutely no online poker. Whereas from this situation, you got Phil Galfond, you got the other Run It Once members, you got the people he's friends with, you got the team behind that. These guys are fucking poker players, man. These guys have been playing poker for many years. They have a much more in-depth, high-level, high-quality understanding of how things could be better. Whether it works from a financial standpoint, that's something that, I can't really speculate. But that's always the argument we hear. It won't work, can't do it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think if we know from talking with Phil, and I've heard this from other people, and I believe he even might have mentioned it on the podcast, for him personally with Run It Once, I don't think he's really making that much money from Run It Once. Personally himself. I'm sure people are getting paid. He's got to pay salaries. He's got to pay people that work for Run It Once. He's got to pay the coaches. He's got to pay for the team behind him. And I think why that's important is that with a project like this, and I'm sure there'll be investors, and obviously investors want to get their money back, but at the same time, I feel like this is something that Phil, he would make clear with whoever it is that he's working with, that like making as much money as we possibly can't be the number one priority. The number one priority is that we want to establish a poker site that's great. We want to establish a poker site that people love to play on, that is there for players of all types. And, it's very similar to PokerStars back in the day with Isai Scheinberg. I go back to something Adam Small from Pocket 5 said on a podcast about how Isai had a dream to make PokerStars this magical place that people could come play poker on. And obviously, he probably made $1 billion in the process. But he wasn't, it's just, the ecosystem's obviously changed, and we're led to believe that the only way it can survive is this PokerStars way. Now, anyone smart probably realizes that's not the case, but there's a lot of people out there who think this is the only way it can be. Let's cut everything. Let's take the money from the players. Let's do this. Spin and goes. This, that. We're led to believe, and people are bringing this message along on the forums and in conversation that this is all that could happen. This is the only way it could be. And I think that we're going to see from Phil that this is not the only way it can be, that it can be done another way. And I think when it comes to how are we going to get the word out there to the recreational player, to players who aren't professional poker players, I mean, depending on how PLO is set up, depending on how the rake system's set up, if it's something where players can actually beat the micro stakes and they're not just getting pillaged, then I personally know I'm willing to put as much effort in as I can to get that out there to people, whether it's streaming for 795 straight days PLO on Twitch, whether it's, I don't know, my God, I just thought I'm coming up with that idea right now in my head, but I feel like a lot of players feel the same. And if there's a place that people can feel very comfortable and very happy trying to get new players to play, that it's a beatable system, that it's a system where you don't have to worry about your games just getting cut away, or everything being run towards spin and goes, where it's just gamble, then I feel like it's going to have the support of almost all the professional poker players. And I think that's very important. So, I read something else about this site might be something like an ultimate poker site in Las Vegas. That was in Nevada. I think that's obviously a ridiculous thing to say, because ultimate poker, from all we know, was run by people who have been in the poker world for quite a while. Maybe they ran another site. I believe one of the ultimate bet guys was involved in ultimate poker. So comparing that team, well, Phil Galfond and his team, I think it's just a ridiculous comparison. I don't think I just think it's pretty ridiculous. So So yeah, guys, I'm pretty optimistic. And at the same time, why not be optimistic about it? Why would you, why not support the idea? Why not be excited about the idea? Spread the word about the idea. At least see what happens with the idea. And, in terms of higher stakes, mid stakes, I'm not sure exactly what he has in mind, but I feel like, once again, whoever the team involved is, they're going to have a much better idea of how to get games started, how to reward table starters, how to get three-handed games going. Maybe you take away rake from the, all these ideas we've always heard over time. I feel like they're going to have a much, much stronger and better understanding than any of the other operators out there right now, simply because they've played hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of hands in that environment. So, guys, stay tuned for more updates. I'll be updating through more videos. Like I said, we'll be getting Phil back on the podcast, hopefully in a couple weeks. You can follow Phil on Twitter at Galfond. Join the discussion over on 2+2. And let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. That's it. Adios. Take it easy, guys.